I'm like, fuck, I should have probably stayed in longer and, gauged it from there with my condition and try to make a difference.
What's up, Kiro?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're just going to jump into it. Let's just start off by, how about you just introduce yourself, tell us your name,
Okay.
what branch of service you served with, and the rank you got out as.
Sounds good. Well, my name is Kiro Awad. That's my full legal name. Everyone knows me as Kiro. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 2011 and 2012, got out as a Lance Corporal. I was born in Alexandria, Egypt. My family immigrated here when I was about 4 years old due to Christian persecution. They thought we'd have a better life and better shot at greater opportunities out here in the United States.
So you were actually born in Egypt?
I was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow. Well, how long did you stay in Egypt?
I was there until I was 4 years old. I vaguely remember some school. I can't read or write, but mainly just speak the language. Then from there, my parents moved us to Fresno, California, where my dad was working as a pizza boy. In Egypt, he was a doctor, but when you immigrate to the States, your license doesn't really transition over with you. Yeah, you still have to go through the process, take the tests. And so what he did is he sent us back to Egypt again for a year, did his studying, became a physical therapist, made more money. But when he brought us back this time, my mom told him, I'm not going back to Fresno. So he moved us to Orange County, and that's where life kind of started for us in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a big change, right? Fresno to Orange County.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Moving from the armpit to the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any siblings?
I have one sister. She's less than a year younger than me. I was born in January and she's born in December, so my parents didn't really waste much time. We're same year twins, I guess. She's currently living out in Arizona. I got two beautiful nephews, and I have 2 kids myself. Been married for about 11 years. My oldest is Ariana. She's 9 years old, and I have Gabriel. He's gonna be 4 in December. And just been working hard.
Awesome, man. So did you go to school in Orange County?
Yeah. I went to Huntington Beach High School. I mainly grew up around Huntington Beach area. And then after high school, I did some college. I mainly did college because, my dad, he's a doctor. He's all about school and education. I was kind of doing it for him, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I felt kind of like a need to serve, given everything this country's provided, the opportunities. I mean, my dad came here as a doctor from Egypt. Started as a pizza boy. 10 years later, he's a licensed medical doctor again. So, it just goes to show the opportunities this country provides for those who are willing to put in the work. And I felt like I need to give back and to serve my country. And I picked the United States Marine Corps because obviously they're the best of the best, the badass. So that was the first office I actually walked into, was the Marine Corps office, and spoke to a recruiter there. And as I stepped out, I was like, let me go just kind of look around a little bit in the other offices. And I stepped into the Navy office. And when they heard I wanted to fight and serve, they talked me into signing up to go to BUDS for the Navy SEALs. And instead of shipping out right away, I told them I wanted about 3 months to kind of shed some weight, practice some of that Navy SEAL side stroke, kind of get myself in shape. And I made it down to MEPS, went through the process, passed the ASVAB, and when it came down to the color vision test, that's when I found out for the first time I have a color vision deficiency. Wow. I didn't know I was colorblind my whole life. And when I brought it up to my dad, he's like, yeah, I remember the doctor saying something about that. I was like, you didn't think you should probably bring that up? So that disqualified me from what I wanted to do into the Navy. And on top of that, when I sat down with the doctors, they were asking me questions regarding my history, and they brought up tuberculosis. And when you come to the States, or when you immigrate here, you're required to take the tuberculosis vaccine. So anytime you take the test, you're going to test positive. And I probably said more than I should have, which obviously didn't qualify me right away to go in. They wanted to kind of see my medical records. But before we even got to that part, I got a letter from the DOD stating that I was permanently disqualified from any military service with any branch.
Oh.
And I found this out because when I didn't qualify for the Navy SEALs, I didn't want to join the Navy anymore. I went back to the Marine Corps office and told my recruiter I want to be a Marine. And so when she came to transfer that paperwork over, she got the notice and she let me know. And I wouldn't take no for an answer. Maybe I was too stubborn or didn't want to read the signs. But I started petitioning the decision, and I had to actually file my dispute through Senator Barbara Boxer's office in Sacramento. And the process took about a year and a half before I finally heard back. And what they wanted me to do was to start a treatment for tuberculosis, which was like a 6-month process for something I didn't even have. So what I ended up doing is got the medication that they requested, waited 6 months, went back, got my negative chest x-ray, and provided them with proof that I don't have tuberculosis, and which then allowed me to go back down to MEPS and sign up, go through the process for the Marine Corps again. Passed the ASVAB, and as I'm sitting in the office down at MEPS, the first sergeant walks in and tells me I'm disqualified, which confused me because I had already gotten a letter saying that I was good to enlist. And from there, or let me go back a little bit. It took almost 2.5 years before I got any word to tell me that I can go into the Marine Corps. So as I was waiting and going to school, I met my wife, who's still my wife currently today. And so now let's fast forward. The first sergeant walks in. He goes, "You're disqualified, and it's because your wife's an illegal immigrant and you're married to her." So
Where was your wife from?
she's from Mexico,
Okay.
of course. But I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Majority of the time, Marines they marry people who are not U.S. citizens or from out of the country that they meet either on deployments, wherever. And he's like, "Yeah, well, you can marry an illegal immigrant while you're in, but you just can't get into the Marine Corps married to an illegal immigrant." So, I ended up calling my wife, and we had an interesting conversation. But she ended up agreeing to give me a divorce on the condition that I remarry her after I get in. But it took some soul searching. She called, the priest at our church and spoke to him about the situation, and he reassured her that the church doesn't acknowledge legal divorces. The church has their own process before granting a divorce. So I ended up going to boot camp around March.
So you ended up getting a divorce?
Yeah, we got the divorce. She gave me the divorce, and in California, because they don't, they give you a cooling off period. It took 6 months for the divorce to finalize. So I got my divorce decree, went back to the recruiting office, gave to them, and they got me into boot camp right away before anything else went wrong. And so, we're talking about a 3-year process here for me to eventually finally become a Marine, which is kind of ironic coming from a family that's very religious. It seems like I missed all the signs to maybe not get in, but that's my personality. So maybe God knew I was going to fight it regardless.
So while you were going through that, did you have anybody telling you like maybe you should quit? Maybe.
Oh yeah, all the time, and especially even with my parents. So my dad was more, he's more going to school, getting your education, having a degree. I heard it from my friends too, that I grew up with, who all also went to college, graduated. They all graduated while I was waiting to get into the Marine Corps. Yeah. I could have been graduating with them. But school wasn't for me, it wasn't direction I wanted to go. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It was mainly to please my dad. And so I was, when I got the divorce decree and I got the final okay to join the Marine Corps, and and found out I'd begin to pursue my dream of getting in, I was stoked. I took it, jumped on it. I gave my wife the heads up, from the day we started dating, that was my original intention. Like, hey, I'm working on becoming a Marine, having all these issues, at the moment, but at any time it could work out. But I also did go to school during the process just to have a fallback in case things went south, because it wasn't guaranteed that they were going to say yes or no.
Yeah. So tell me, before you move forward,
Yeah.
what was it about? First of all, I'd like to know, was it the Marine Corps or the military that you were fighting to get into? And what was it about either the Marines or the military that kept you from not giving up to get in?
That's a great question. I left the Navy because the Navy, I felt, didn't have the standards that I set for myself, and I felt like the Marine Corps held very high standards for the people, for those who served, and they had the brotherhood I was looking for. I had a set of close friends, maybe 5 or 6 guys I grew up with that we were very close. But obviously, as you get older, life sets in. Everyone goes their own path, school, whatever it might be, and I felt a longing for that brotherhood, and just meeting other Marines. Also, I had a friend of mine that I went to, I've been friends with since grade school. He's a Marine, and I saw how he was, or still is. And I had another friend I went to church with. His brother became a Marine, and just all these things I heard about the Marine Corps made me want to join it even more. And just knowing that, the Marine Corps is the most elite branch and the hardest branch to get into. And I think that's what drew me towards it as well, was the challenge. Yeah. I want to see if I had what it took to be a Marine. And so it was just a combination of things, of who I wanted to be, the character, the values I set for myself, and the high standards that I had. And the Marine Corps was the best suited for what I wanted.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. So I shipped out to boot camp, and the Monday after graduation, I was back in the courthouse getting remarried to my wife, which is it's a funny story because obviously after that little situation while I was in the Marine Corps, we started working on her paperwork, and one of the questions when she got interviewed for her permanent resident card was, "Why'd you marry the same asshole you divorced?" And so the person asking her the question happened to be a veteran too, and when she expressed to him that my goal before she met me was to be a Marine and she couldn't keep me from pursuing that, he appreciated that, and he understood the situation that she was put in, and he thought she was a bigger person for what she did. And so it kind of worked out for her as well, because he was then empathetic, and it kind of helped push her paperwork a little faster.
That's a supportive wife.
Yeah.
Right there, man. Now that I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, being an immigrant, and she's married to you now, and then you saying we have to divorce because I want to be in the Marine Corps. Like, I can't imagine what she felt like. What was going through her mind. Maybe like, oh my God, is he gonna remarry me? Like, how do I know? Right? Like,
right.
Wow.
She probably thought it was some kind of lame excuse to divorce her, or that I met someone else, I'm sure.
Right.
And I did bring up that topic too while I was in boot camp. You get those moments with the senior drill instructor where he takes off his hat and he talks to you as a person. Where I asked him, is this standard? Is this part of the SOP? And he goes, no. He's like, you got lied to, Awad. He's like, someone didn't know what they were talking about, and you probably never had to divorce your wife. But then you hear different things from different people, and in the end, we made it work.
Wow. But did you ever find out?
I never got a legit answer. No, no. Wow. Until today, no one's been able to give me a solid answer.
Wow. What is the answer?
I honestly couldn't tell you, and there's a lot of things that play in my head as to why maybe I got disqualified. I know that I talked to my recruiter after boot camp, and I mentioned that I got interviewed by a government official prior to going to MEPS regarding my background, and that this individual mentioned he was part of the government and was asking me all these questions about my prior employment. And I asked him if that was standard. He said absolutely not. And so when I got put with my unit with 2-1, and I went to become, they put me as an armor. I had to go to get to legal to get my secret clearance, and it turned out I already had a secret clearance in place, and I never applied for one. So I think that maybe, and this is all just assumptions, that the interview I had initially prior to getting in was probably to go towards my secret clearance, and then when I married an illegal immigrant, it probably,
like a red flag or something.
Yeah.
Well, I was curious to know what the correct answer was. Can you go in with an immigrant spouse or not, or you just don't?
I mean, you can go in with an immigrant spouse, just not an illegal one.
Right, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
illegal, I guess. Okay.
Which, I mean, it's probably going to vary from branch to branch. I don't think
crazy.
the Army's going to care.
Right. So, so you made it through boot camp.
Right.
You got back up a little bit.
Okay.
Did you get to pick your job?
Yeah, I went in as a infantry. I went in infantry because I wanted to try out for force recon. Since I couldn't get into SEALs, I figured I'd try the next best thing. The requirement for SEALs, color vision is required. With the Marine Corps is recommended but not required. So they had looser requirements, and I wanted to give that a shot. Not how it ended up working out. I became a motorman instead, but yeah.
So you get out of boot camp, and you end up marrying your wife again.
We got remarried. I did 2 weeks as a recruiter assistant before I got assigned to Alpha Company down at SOI, School of Infantry. And during School of Infantry is where I got meritoriously promoted to Lance Corporal. So when I hit the fleet, I was already a Lance Corporal.
Why'd you get meritoriously promoted?
I basically volunteered for anything and everything I could. If they asked for help, I raised my hand. My fitness was on point. I think I scored a 295 out of the 300 requirement at the time. I'm not sure if that's changed or not. But the only thing I lagged on was my running. Mm-hmm. So I hit the 20 pull-ups. I got the push-ups, but my run was 1918 for 3 miles.
Yeah. So they promoted you based off like your fitness, sounds
everything.
Like? Nice. Yeah. For being squared away.
Yeah, essentially.
How long was School of Infantry? How was that for you? Was it harder than boot camp, or did you think boot camp was harder?
I think boot camp was harder. I think with the Marine Corps, the body adapts faster than the mind, but by the time I already got to School of Infantry, you've adjusted. I went into boot camp, and I didn't qualify as a fat body, but I was borderline. I was about 195 when I got in, and when I stepped out of boot camp, I was down to 155.
Wow.
Yeah, so I need to change my uniform pretty quickly, and then just boot camp got me in shape. So when I went to School of Infantry, it wasn't any harder. Plus, you get liberal on the weekends,
Right.
But no, School of Infantry was probably one of the best times I've had in the Marine Corps. I enjoy the training, I enjoy the physical aspects, I enjoy the push, and it was exactly what I envisioned about the Marine Corps in a sense.
Being that you were in Camp Pendleton and your hometown was in Orange County, right? Mm-hmm. Did you go home on the weekends or?
I did, yeah. And so when I even after I completed School of Infantry, and since I was married, I got to live off base. So my wife and I, we rented in Orange County, and I just drove. It wasn't too long of a drive to get to Barcelona Road.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where'd you go from School of Infantry?
I was down at Horno, so I was with 2-1 Echo Company, and it was a good time. I learned a lot. We did some training in Yuma, Arizona, with the Osprey and the Chinooks and whatnot. So that was an experience I never had before. You know, it's eventually I sustained a back injury while I was in boot camp that started to flare up during, you know, SOI, and as I got into the fleet, it just progressed. You know, I tried going to, you know, base medical and whatnot, and trying to figure out the situation with my back, because I started getting shooting pain down the left side of my body, and you know, it would lock me up and knock me off my feet, and I wasn't that's kind of where the disappointment started to set in with the Marine Corps. I felt like I didn't have the support or anyone to kind of help me navigate the medical process. You know, you hear a lot of things about what you need to do, what you should do, and you get all these documentations, but no one's really explaining what's going on. And you know, when I spoke with the company XO, you know, I told them how hard I fought to get into the Marine Corps. You know, the only option I was being given by medical was either you suck it up and, you know, stop getting treatment for it, or you get out. And he basically told me that there's nothing that he can do. I couldn't even change my MOS to something like Intel, where I can use my, you know, Arabic speaking skills. He just told me, this is not the old Marine Corps. This is the new Marine Corps. And there was even my CEO. No one could really can really give me proper guidance. And I don't really blame them much. The company had just, when I arrived, or when a lot of the guys that I went to SOI with arrived, they were just coming back from a deployment, so they still hadn't even found their own bearings. Like, they didn't have the proper people in place. But in addition to that, I just feel like the expectations I set for the Marine Corps weren't being met. How I expected the Marine Corps to treat me and what I expected to learn wasn't being established, and it just started to really set in that the reality of things.
Do you think that they were treating you different because you were injured?
That I do. I mean, but that's kind of normal. I feel like in the Marine Corps,
right?
You're always being shit on when you get injured, and I was trying everything I could to kind of, like I said, navigate that aspect, and I was trying to get help. But by that time, you know, when you're not getting the help and you're not experiencing, I don't know how to explain it, I guess, the camaraderie that you expected. By that time, you know, my wife had just given birth too, and I started thinking, well, what am I doing here then? You know, am I gonna suck it up and then further injure my body to the point where, you know, I can't then play with my own kid? By the time I get out, my back's too fucked up for me to do anything with her or be able to carry. I mean, I couldn't even change my kid's diaper. So, you know, I couldn't really help my wife out much at first with the baby, you know. So it makes you start to really think about what you're sacrificing and who you're sacrificing it for. If the people you're supposed to be fighting next to you aren't supporting you on the smallest things, how can you expect the support when it comes to being deployed? You know, it's a lot of things started going through my mind, but you know, I wasn't feeling that brotherhood. It just feels like they eventually single you out and isolate you, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do at this point? You know, because the minute I got out of SOI, I was ready to keep moving. You know, they knew it too. When I got to the fleet, I was all moto. I remember just having to go on a hump when we first got there, and the guys I came from SOI with, we all smoked the guys that were in the fleet, because we were still in our prime. Mm-hmm. You know, so they're trying to take us out there to kind of haze us in a sense. In the end, they just end up hazing themselves. But I mean, there's a lot I can say about it.
What was going on with your back? Did you ever get that figured out?
I had degenerative disc disease. In addition to that, I had protrusion in the lower lumbar, S4, S5, and so it was pinching on a nerve that was causing the pain. And I still have it till today. Back surgery is never really recommended. You can make things worse. I'm after I got out, I was rated at an automatic 30%. I think that's standard. I think we were talking about that earlier, me and you. But I remember when I was in SOI with Alpha Company, we were a class that got chosen for a test. I wasn't one of the individuals that was tested, but there was a handful of guys, maybe like 30, that got put on a program where their medical conditioning was being checked probably 2 or 3 times a week throughout, including the any deviations in their spine from how they originally started. And the doctors found that majority of the time, almost all of them had some kind of defect in their spine after training. And I mean, if you know anything about, I'm sure you do with fitness, you don't just start lifting heavy. You don't walk in the gym from never ever lifting and you start benching 2 plates or whatnot. It's a gradual process, and I think the Marine Corps, they just put you on those 2 plates right off the bat. It's like you pick up everything you got and you go on a 10-mile hike instead of helping the body kind of progress like it's supposed to. Everything's crammed into a very short period of time, which leads to a lot of injuries because it's never done the right way. So from there, went through the whole medical process, ended up getting out, got out with 30% rating, and I appealed it. Or even prior to me getting out, I had to, like I mentioned, I sat down with the company XO, but when I met with the JAG officer, it seemed like he wasn't very informed about the different types of discharges that there are with the Marine Corps, and my discharge stated under honorable conditions, and I told him I'm not going to be getting out of the Marine Corps with anything less than honorable, which is the same way I came in. I fought hard to get into the Marine Corps and made sacrifices, divorced my wife, and if it's not working out, then I'm still going to get out honorably. And he kept insisting that this was an honorable discharge, and so the next day he followed up with me and apologized because he was wrong about the types of discharges, and in order for him to be able to correct the discharge back up to honorable, I had to write a letter to the battalion commander, which I did. Wrote a pretty good eloquent letter. Went online, found all the right words just to make sure I made an impression, and ended up getting my rating or my discharge bumped up to honorable before I got out. And I remember too, I think the JAG officer was trying to get me to correct it after I got out, which is even harder to do, and including getting any kind of medical added to your records after you get out. Some of them try to encourage that rather than adding it while you're in, and it seems like the process is kind of backwards sometimes getting out, which is why a lot of veterans have a hard time when they get out trying to get a rating increase. I remember sitting through TAPS, and some of the people from the VA are telling the Marines about the process. Some of the things that if they experience certain things in their body, this is what they need to say. And I think it was a major who kind of spoke out and said, if you haven't lost a limb, you shouldn't be applying for shit. And that's how he spoke to the Marines. And I think the Marine Corps kind of tries to enforce that, like we talked about with medical. Like if you get injured, you're considered weak or a piece of shit, or and they isolate you. And it's kind of the same thing that he was, in a sense, doing, trying to shame everyone who probably had a real reason for wanting to apply for those medical benefits. And they made the sacrifice, so I think they earned it.
Right.
So it's just a lot of things in the Marine Corps that need to change and haven't. I think hindsight kind of makes me feel like, or I regret maybe not staying in and being the change I want to see, setting the example. And sometimes I'll look back and I'm like, fuck, I should have probably stayed in longer and, gauged it from there with my condition and try to make a difference. But you never know, right? I think everything happens for a reason, and
Right, you're also weighing your injury and
right,
and thinking about your family,
right,
right?
exactly,
Well, I think family comes first, so I wouldn't regret the decision to get out to, be able to take care of your family like that, right?
right.
So when you said you went for a rating increase to the VA, what was that like? What was that process like for you?
So I got the decision regarding my rating after I got out. It was at 30%, and when I came to appeal it, I didn't understand the process. The paperwork was in English, but it could have been. It seemed like it was in a foreign language. It just the medical terminology that you have to use, how things need to be stated. It was kind of overwhelming. And so when I got that paperwork and just kind of looked it over, I ended up putting it in a drawer somewhere and kind of let it be. And it wasn't until after I got out, I started working at a bank. I was helping this Marine open up a bank account at Schools First Federal Credit Union, and after we got to talking, he told me how he just got his decision, his rating bumped. He referred me to a lady by the name of Veronica Lira with Alternatives for Vets. And she started my process, I want to say late 2013 into 2014, and I didn't get an official decision until 2020, almost 7 years later. Wow. Of dealing with the VA. And we went to a higher appeal, I think it's called higher appeals court. And the judge actually ruled in my favor to bump me up to 80, and didn't state anything regarding any kind of timelines where then it would be reversed. No, it was set to 80. But then the VA went in themselves and reassessed his decision, bumped me to 80 for a certain period of time, and then set it back down to 60. So it's like all that work was all those years is kind of almost for nothing, because my rating through little appeals did go from 30 to 40 or about 30 to 50, and then only to have 7 years go by and only get bumped up to 60 after doing all that work, and not even being able to appeal, kind of to discuss that decision with the VA, and find out why, if the judge ruled one way, would they go back and make their own assessment on that ruling.
Yeah. Was the process stressful for you?
Well, when I was doing it by myself, yes, it was, because I didn't understand what I needed to say. The VA's listening for certain verbiage. There's certain things that trigger a rating increase, and when you don't have the right person kind of guiding you, because when you're sitting down in front of the VA rep, sometimes you're not at your worst. You could be in between, and also we're always trying to downplay our condition in a sense, and we're not giving the full assessment of how we are when we're at our worst. And so the VA is just basing it on how you look at the time, so which makes it kind of tricky, because you don't know how you're supposed to respond to what they're telling you or what they're asking you, if you don't have someone kind of coaching you. I mean, part of the reason why they gave me a decision of 30% was because they assessed that based off a 1 year period, my back would only affect me for 1 week out of the year, and which is kind of how they calculated days and the pain and whatnot.
Wow.
It's weird.
Wow. How do they come up with that?
I have no idea. It's a system that's too messed up to try to understand.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's why a lot of veterans kind of quit, and because they never get the help they really need from individuals who care. You know, the VA is part of the government, and it's kind of hard to fire a government employee for not doing their job. And there are people out there who have left the VA to try to create a better system and kind of streamline it. And even though they might not do it for free, sometimes, you know, these companies need support, but they're a lot better than those being assigned to me by the VA. Especially, you know, my original VSO, he never answered his phone. I called him, left him several messages, never got back to me. And which is part of the reason why I also ended up putting the paperwork in a drawer, is because as I'm reviewing it and they're telling me who my VSO is, and I'm trying to reach him, but no one's calling me back, you're like, you don't know what to do at that point. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are they? So is the VA taking care of you now?
Well, right now I'm up to 80%, so it's a lot better than 30. But they still haven't really expedited the process or streamlined it. There's still a wait. From what I've learned is that any new condition you're adding kind of gets assessed faster than trying to appeal an outstanding decision. Those are the ones that take the longest.
What about the treatment though? Are you getting some good treatment from the VA for your back? Are they, you know, do you go see them regularly? Or?
Well, my rating, since I just got it, I haven't even had a chance to even go to the VA, especially during 2020. I didn't really make it out like I should.
Right.
But you know, I did go to when I did go to the chiropractor. There was little movements and techniques that I've learned throughout the process. Also, my dad's a doctor, so he's always helped me with, you know, the physical therapy part and just the conditioning, to making sure that, you know.
What did your wife say to you about, you know, having to get out after everything you did to get into the Marine Corps?
You know, she didn't say much. She was always very supportive. If it was what I wanted to do, she understood. She didn't really question it. I guess she just wanted to make sure that I wasn't jumping into anything I would regret, you know. Mm-hmm. But she's like, if that's what you want to do, then, you know, you got her support 100%. And she's always been like that. You know, not many women, I guess, would give you a divorce or, you know, be supportive of what you're trying to accomplish, especially when it comes to something like a divorce, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah, sounds like it, man. She sounds like
she's a keeper.
Sounds like a good wife.
Yeah. 11 years later.
Right. So, you know, it sounds like, you know, when you were putting in all that work to get into the Marine Corps, you know, you were searching for that brotherhood you mentioned and the camaraderie. And it seemed like I think it might have sounded like you didn't find that in there. Is that right? Did you ever find it in there?
No, but I did find it when I got out, though. And it was just recently that I ran into a good group of Marines that I started, you know, working and doing real estate with. And one of them, as I mentioned before, was First Sergeant Coburn. You know, I met him. I do real estate, and I met him during an open house. And when he found out I was a Marine, to him it didn't matter how long I served for or what I got out for, or the reason. You know, to him, I was one of his people, and he immediately kind of wanted to take. You know, he's always had that leadership role, being a first sergeant, and so he immediately wants to kind of take you under his wing. Mm-hmm. You know, even though he was just getting his real estate license and I had mine for about 3 years already, you know, he wanted me to come join his team, and my wife, she does real estate too, and which was pretty cool because part of what we were doing was we were going on base and educating the Marines about their, you know, their VA benefits, their eligibility for buying a house, and the process, which I feel is also lacking in the Marine Corps. you can go sit down with a career planner and they can kind of tell you the process to, advance and whatnot, but you can't figure out the process to not living on base or how to buy a house. There's no one really there to guide you. And there's a lot of, I don't want to say deception, but confusion when it comes to names like with big banks like Navy Federal or USAA. People assume that they're automatically part of the military, that's a military bank, but they're not. And so they're walking in these banks and they're not being given the right information because a lot of them don't understand the benefits themselves. And a lot of Marines, I remember actually before I even got into real estate, I walked into Navy Federal. I wanted to find out what my benefits were about buying a house, and I was told I was going to need about $10,000 to $15,000 to buy a house, which I didn't have. And when I asked about 0% or not 0% financing, but zero down to buy a home, they kind of try to talk me out of going through the process. They didn't know, like, oh, well, you have your closing costs, you have all these fees you have to pay, and they don't really give you a solution because they don't know the workarounds to these loan programs. And given that eventually I learned the loan process, did a lot of real estate deals with Marines, I know the ins and outs. Now I'm able to tell them, hey, you don't need 10 to 12,000. I've gotten Marines in the homes with $1,000. So it's something that's not being taught on base, and I feel like maybe it's not just the Marine Corps, maybe it's a lot of the branches in general that intentionally don't educate the service members in order to maybe, I don't know, keep them on base or keep them within a controlling radius, because if Marines like to go out and have a good time, and sometimes when you get out in the city and you're around civilians, you do stupid stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Where would you recommend Marines or any military, every branch gets the same housing benefits, right?
Right.
Where would you recommend anybody getting out of the service to go find out about their VA benefits as far as mortgages and home loans and stuff goes?
I wouldn't say go to one person because one person can tend to give you the wrong information, especially if they don't know. Right now the internet's a great resource. You can find out a lot of things on the internet. But I would call multiple resources and find out from them. Just interview more than one loan officer, realtor, to make sure that they know the process and they're experts in that field and can give you the right information, because one person might tell you no, but another one might tell you yes. And we have that happen all the time where a veteran's being told that they can't buy a house, but then we know the right lender, the right person to connect them with, and they've probably done a deal with a similar situation as to this veteran, and they're able to help them navigate that terrain for home buying and getting the loan. So you'll be surprised. I've had veterans who are like, oh, my credit score is below a 600 or around 500. The bank told me I can't qualify for a loan, but then we get them a loan and get them into a home. So it's kind of the same thing with me, where I wouldn't take no for an answer getting into the Marine Corps. Don't let a no stop you. Keep trying to find that yes.
Yeah, just be resourceful. Huh?
Exactly.
Okay.
There's always a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. We'll get ready to cut the tape now, man. I just, but before we do, before we start wrapping this up, I just want to see if is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
Anything else? No, I don't think so. Unless you have any other questions for me.
No, I appreciate you talking about the process, the VA process, especially, I think it goes well, obviously, for your situation, having to get out due to injuries and stuff. So, you're not the first person, Marine or service member that has felt alone when it comes to a situation like that. You know, I mean, I remember getting out myself, but it's like, hey, whoever's not re-enlisting needs to get the fuck out because there's new Marines here and they need your barracks, you know. And then a few weeks before that, I was in fucking a combat zone, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, I'm fucking sitting at home as a civilian. So I think your story is going to resonate with some people that might have been in your situation or that might be in there now. So I appreciate you being here, Kiro, and
appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for your service, man.
Thank you for yours. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road.